All right, so now what we want to do is add in the actual query that I'm making into this search, right? So if I did search for the shirt again, I want to actually show that I searched for that. So we can do this by changing our template a little bit. So I'm going to change this from template name being products list. I'm going to change it to search view. Literally the same template overall, but I'm going to just change a few things to it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that in as search, but then I'm going to add a new folder in here called templates. And then inside there, I'm going to make a new folder in there called search. And then finally, we're going to make a new file called view.html. But it's essentially an identical copy of list. So I'm just going to copy list itself. But I'm going to get rid of this for loop counter here. Okay. So we got rid of that for loop counter. We don't actually need that one anymore. But what I will add is above this item list, I'm going to add something for div class equals to column 12. And then we are going to say searched for, and it's going to be request.get.queue. And I want to add a padding on the top or on the bottom, a margin on the bottom of 3. So I always have some extra space underneath this search and the top. So search for, and then that. I save this. I make sure I save my view with my new template. And let's refresh in here. And now it says searched for shirt. Okay, great. So we really could instead say results for that. And the other part of this is I can say if request.get.queue. Let's go ahead and cut that, put that up here, and then put end if. Save that, refresh in there, and now we've got results for shirt. Great. If I don't have any results, no search at all. So maybe if there are no results, then I'll put in a actual search bar, right? So in this case, I'll do div class equaling to column 8. Or actually, let's leave it in as column 12 and then column medium 8. And then we will just want it to be responsive. So margin X auto. And there we go. And then in here, I'll say input type equals to, well, some sort of search. So I'll just do text for now. And we'll do value, or rather placeholder equals to search. I also want to have this being class of text or form control to use the Bootstrap form control. So I refresh in here. I don't have, or I currently have a search in there for shirt, but I want to get rid of it. And we see the search form, but this card is showing up still. And that's because of this column right here. So it's going to fit in and we actually don't need any padding. So instead, I'm going to just take all of this out and put it into its own row right above for this exact reason. Yes, there's other things that we could do to make this work, but I'm going to just put it in as my own row. I refresh in there, and what do you know? It's now working better with a search bar actually right there. I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller of a search, and I'm going to write the MB3 on the row. So we have a little bit bottom margin on the row. There we go. If I break it down, I've got my search there showing up. Now, we could keep this search bar here all the time, regardless of whether or not we are actually searching for an item, but we already have a search bar. It's right up here. So I also want to do a couple more things with this and relates to padding. And I'll do P and Y. And this is going to be top and bottom, right? So top and bottom padding. And I'm going to do 4. So I refresh in there. And now my search bar is a little bit better off. It's looking a little better. Let's change it to 5. And we refresh there. That's pretty good. I like that. So the search is just a little bit more front and center. And then I have a few other items there that I'm actually going to put an HR line in there as well to make sure that our search is showing up nice and clean. Actually, I don't like that. So let's try it one more time and say div class equals to column 12 and put the HR line end here. We save that, refresh, and there we go. That gives us a better look of what the search should be, right? So if I break this down, that's still looking pretty good, and it has the cards below, so suggested featured items are below this since the search is missing. Okay, so one of the things that you may have noticed, I didn't actually have to add in the queue or the request inside of my context. So I didn't have to put the query in there, right? It's already there with request.get.queue. That is very nice for us. It makes it really easy to actually handle this request or this queue that's coming through versus coming through here and saying define get context data, self, and any args and keyword args, and then setting the context here, which we could still do this. So I'm going to go ahead and set it. And this is also review. And then we're going to return context. And in here, I can say context query equals to, and that's simply self.request.get.queue, or sorry, .get and queue. You don't need to do .queue. That's for the template itself. The template has an ability to do this. Your view will not. So you can do it just like that. And then instead of doing request.get.queue, we put in query. You can still absolutely do that. That will work just fine. So let's go ahead and add the query of shirt. It's still working. But using the request that's already in the template makes things a lot easier for us. The reason that works is in our settings, when we go down to template, we have a template context processor for the request. The request itself is going onto our template so we can handle it just like we did. I'll actually leave it in as the query because it's a little bit easier to write just query. And also leaving it in as the query instead of using with request.get.queue as query. Like that is adding more business logic to our template that we don't need. We don't need to add that logic there. We'll just add it into our view. The other nice thing about having it in our view is if for some reason I wanted to change this to being query equals to that and query, and I wanted to set some analytic data, let's say for instance I had a search query model, so search query.objects.create query equals to query, you totally could do that. There is how you would actually save that query in here. You don't have to do it in the context data. You could do it in the get query set method as well. So it doesn't really matter which one you put it in. It just allows us to do more logic like this that you might end up wanting to do. Obviously, we don't have that, so I'm going to keep that commented out. But that is an option for actually using your query. All right, so that's it for this one. We will, if you have any questions, of course, let us know below. And the next one, we'll actually pick it up where we actually write it in a search form instead of on the URL.